Welcome back to How to Cake It. This week I am making a dinosaur cake as requested for my son's 3rd birthday. Specifically a green dinosaur cake that is chocolate inside. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. There are new videos every Tuesday. To make this dinosaur cake, I'm using 8 pounds of my ultimate chocolate cake batter. If you would like the recipe for my chocolate cake and to find out how I divided my batter between my pans, check the link below. I actually baked some of my batter in a bowl. I level it completely flat, leaving the cake in the bowl and using the edges of my bowl as a guide. To level my round cakes, I'm actually going to cut off a bit less of the hump than I normally do to leave a slightly rounded edge. Now I'm going to layer some of these cakes starting with my 8-inch round pan. I'm just going to cut this cake in half horizontally. My bowl cake is out of its bowl and I'm going to layer it in 3. It's time to simple syrup all of my cake layers. If you don't know what simple syrup is, there's a link below to my recipe. There's also a link to buy this simple syrup bottle and this festive outfit. You look so festive. You're just over Halloween. We are also over Halloween because it's time for the holidays. Today's the day. Registration for Camp Cake is open. This time we're doing a holiday edition. We're gonna bake together live in real time and create some amazing holiday treats. I'm in my kitchen, you're in yours. Early bird pricing will only last until November 10th, so do not miss out. And don't forget, when you sign up for Camp Cake, you get my Holiday Baking Hacks ebook for free. It's time to color some of my Italian meringue buttercream a nice bright lime green for the inside of my dinosaur. I love using my stabilizer when coloring my buttercream. If you want to know where to get a stabilizer, you can head over to howtocakeit.com. It's your holiday baking headquarters. Now I'm going to begin stacking some of my cake. We're actually going to make this dinosaur in 2 parts. I start by flipping one of my 8-inch layer cakes over so that the rounded edge is facing down. Then I add my second 8-inch layer, and then I add my sphere cake in the proper order, creating a dome on top of my 8-inch cake. Now I'll move on to the second part of this cake. I take my 6-inch round cake and flip it over so the rounded edge is down once again. Fill it with my lime green buttercream. Then I place the second 6-inch layer on top with the curved edge on top this time. I'm going to work on the larger of my 2 cakes first, this being the bulk of the dinosaur's body. I want to create a spine on this dinosaur for the spikes that I'm going to add later on. So I begin by carving down from the top center of the dome in either direction, just to taper him out a little and really define a spine. Now I'm going to move on to the second cake, and first I'm going to cut a little bit of the edge off so I can flip it onto its side and it will be flat on the bottom. I use a circle cutter to create a nook in the smaller cake so that I can really butt it up against the bigger cake. I can see the buttercream filling, and that is marking where his spine will continue. Much like the first cake, I carve this little cake in the same shape because it's going to be an extension of the dinosaur. I need to butt my 2 cakes together to form the dinosaur's butt. What? It's time to crumb coat and chill this cake. I'm using my lime green buttercream once again because my son said a green dinosaur. Open the door, get on the floor, everybody walk the dinosaur. Jeremy, you know the song. Yes. They're like, whoo! Now we're gonna get a million. Where is Sasha? Before I pop my cake in the fridge, I realized I want to make some adjustments. I always find that after I crumb coat, I can see the shape much better. So I decided to shave off a little bit of his front to create a bit of a belly, and I trimmed down the butt part of the dinosaur. Just tapered it a little more. It's looking a little rounded. There's nothing wrong with a rounded butt. It's very in style, but I don't think that CAKEASAURUS Rex dinosaurs had that. The CAKEASAURUS Rex was not a Kardashian. After I've made those adjustments, I pop my cake in the fridge to chill. Now I'm gonna ice my cake one more time and chill it before moving on to fondant.
Okay, so
Ice, like Ice Age, like dinosaurs. This is all coming together. If you find that you have ridges in your buttercream after icing it the second time, you could smooth them out with wet fingertips or a little icing spatula and a little bit more butter. I'm gonna cover this cake in green fondant. So he just says green. And I'm like, there's like 50 shades of green. So I just picked the easiest green. I can't get my son to nap. I can't get him to eat everything I want to. He nags me. He nags. 3-year-olds nag. The cake, I got this. There's no mistaking. This fondant is green. You know, I have 99 problems. The cake ain't green. I roll out my green fondant to be big enough to cover my entire dinosaur body. I pick it up with my French rolling pin and drape it over the dinosaur and then smooth it all out over the butt, over the body with my hands. I tuck the fondant under as neatly as I can and trim away the excess. I'm gonna move on to making the fondant details for the rest of this dinosaur, and before I do so, I need to mix some CMC into my fondant. This just helps to make it sturdier so that the neck and the tail will really stand up. To create the neck of my dinosaur, I first roll out a tube of green fondant, and then I insert a sharpened dowel down the center of that tube. I want to shape this tube so it's sort of thicker at the bottom where the neck will meet his body and more tapered at the top so his head can sit on. I insert one end of the dowel into the body of the dinosaur, leaving the neck on top. Now I just make any adjustments to the neck that I need to. I use the palms of my hand to sort of massage the neck down and make it as seamless as I can for now with the body. And then I trim away any excess because I do want about 1 inch of dowel left on top to hold up the head. Now I'm going to make this dinosaur's head. I formed the dinosaur's head mainly with my hands. I did use my small rolling pin to create an indent where his eyeballs will rest and a circle cutter to create a smile. It's a CAKEASAURUS Rex, so this is how they look. Very cute. It's time to add this cute little head onto my CAKEASAURUS Rex. I just pop him down on top of the point of my dowel and he's nice and secure. To create the tail, I roll out a tube of fondant that is much thicker on one end and then tapers down to a point at the other. Before adding the tail to my dinosaur's body, I need to cut away some of the fondant so that it really just curves around the body. I tried to do it with a knife first and ended up using a circle cutter. Now I want to fill in the seams on this dinosaur between the neck and the body and the tail and the body. I used some of my green fondant that I had left over that did not have CMC in it and softened it quite a bit with some vegetable shortening. Then I rolled that fondant into a tube and I wrapped it around the base of the neck. I did the same at the base of the tail, and I used a wet paintbrush and a wet fingertip to really just sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Smooth? Yeah. To smooth that fondant into the body, just sort of softening the seams. I didn't need your help there, Jocelyn. If you don't have 12 free hours to make a green dinosaur cake, just remember that at Camp Cake, we do simpler yet delicious desserts and baking projects. As well, in my Holiday Baking Hacks ebook, nothing takes 12 hours. You can make everything in the book in less than 12 hours. And remember, when you get my Holiday Baking Hacks ebook, there is a link to 2 How to Cake It videos just for you. Nobody else can see them. Jocelyn hasn't seen them.
That is
yes,
not
she has. I know. I roll out some of the same green fondant that I used to cover my entire dinosaur cake, and I'm going to use some plastic netting placed over top, roll my small fondant rolling pin over it to create some texture in my green fondant. This green fondant is going to become part of the spikes on the dinosaur spine. I really want to brighten the green of my dinosaur cake because I want to make sure it's green. These were the only instructions. So I use a bit of yellow food coloring diluted with clear food grade alcohol, and I paint my entire dinosaur, head and all, and then I also paint my textured green fondant that I have rolled out. I'm going to make the feet of this dinosaur using some more of my CMC green fondant. I rolled it into a ball and cut that ball into 4 portions. And then I just formed sort of rounded feet and used a sculpting tool to make 3 toes. I'm going to put this aside to dry, and in the meantime, I'm going to roll out some lime green gum paste that I'm going to use on my spikes as well. I start by rolling my gum paste into a tube using my hands, and then I use my small fondant rolling pin to taper that tube. I basically want it to be pointy on one side and thicker on the other. Now I use my triangle cutters to cut out some spikes. I'm going to apply these light green gum paste spikes to the spine of my dinosaur using clear piping gum. Then I use my triangle cutters again to cut more spikes from my textured dark green fondant and add those triangles to either side of the light green spikes. Time to give this dinosaur a belly. He does eat a lot of chocolate cake after all. This dinosaur was a cocavore. It only ate chocolate. That's why it didn't survive. But first I'm going to make myself a quick template to help me cut my gum paste to the right size. I lay this template onto rolled out lime green gum paste and cut out my shape. Then I used a ruler. Did you think I was going to make my son's cake and not use a ruler? I used the ruler to make horizontal markings on his belly. Now I'm going to add the belly to the dinosaur and move on to adding a few spots. I used more of my lime green gum paste rolled out nice and thin and a selection of round piping tips to cut out various size circles. Then I added the spots in a random pattern.
Really?
Well, random according to Yolanda. I made sure there was the same amount of dots on either side in the same amount of sizes. This guy needs a tooth. You know what he needs? A tooth. For the tooth, I rolled out some white gum paste and used a couple of circle cutters to cut out a tooth. Then I added it in his mouth and trimmed it at the sides so it would fit inside his mouth.
We've done a character with 1 tooth before.
Ooh. Guys, what other 1-tooth cake have I made on How to Cake? If you want to see some of my other character cakes, I have a full playlist. Check it out. There's a link right over here. Should I point to it with my party hat?
Go for it.
The link is here. It's time to give this dinosaur some eyeballs. I formed his eyeballs inside of an old little teaspoon I have that's like a perfectly rounded little dome. I love it. So I just softened my gum paste, pressed it in, let it sit for a moment, and then cut it flush and banged it out of the spoon, and then I made a second eyeball in the same way. For the pupils of his eye, I rolled out some black fondant as thin as I could, like paper thin, and cut out 2 circles with a piping tip. And then for the little gleam in his eye, I just rolled tiny little balls of white and flattened them with my finger. While I still have my white gum paste, I'm going to make the claws for this dinosaur. I roll the gum paste into little tubes, trim it to equal lengths, and then just sort of taper off each end to a point with my fingertips and add the claws to his feet. He needs nostrils to smell. So I used a pointed sculpting tool. I created 2 nostrils. Again, like I said, I got 99 problems, but a cake ain't one. Let me tell you what one of my problems is. I wore this hat, we had dinosaurs everywhere, I placed the cake down in front of my son, and he went, "A green dinosaur? I wanted a brown one."
No, he didn't.
After he told me green dinosaur
No, he didn't.
50,000 times.
Oh my
Excuse me,
Lord.
when did you decide that? 1 second ago?
Are you kidding?
Did I say he was a difficult client or what?